Hey everybody, welcome to Written and Watched, where we read a book and talk about it, and then watch the movie and talk about it. Today I have with me magician and author, so he's perfectly equipped to do this one, Eoin Smith, to talk about The Prestige. Eoin, you want to say hi to the people and introduce
Hello.
yourself? Tell them where you can find you.
I'm Ian. I'm a magician and author, as Justin said, from Aberdeen in Scotland.
That's why the accent is there. I was trying to figure that out. I couldn't quite place it.
so I've been, my background is, uh, in writing and in magic. As a writer, I've been a journalist. I've had quite a few short stories published. I've written humor for humor magazines and things, um, and I've also kind of worked in marketing for arts organisations. And as a magician, I've performed all across Scotland in various different settings. So yeah, the opportunity to talk about prestige is really exciting.
How does magic play in Scotland? Is it because I'm in Vegas, so I'm in, like, if you have a magic act here, we've got Penn and Teller, we've got Chris Angel. Just sidewalk shows though too are amazing. So how does magic perform on stage in Scotland?
So magic's obviously a bit different here. It's been a while since I've been to Vegas. It's like the mecca for magicians, right? Everyone wants to go there. So I actually went on a family holiday there when I was like 13 or 14 because my dad's a magician too, and we
Yeah.
wanted to kind of get involved in the magic. It's kind of different here. You don't really have people headlining their own shows in the same way people will tour, but they won't necessarily have their own theatre built for them. And that's a luxury, and I think a lot of us would love. But yeah, Magic's popular. I mean, it's on TV quite a lot. People are touring and having a good time. And we were quite lucky. I've been recently performing a show with three other magicians, which we imaginatively titled Four Magicians. And
Clever, yes.
we we just kind of got at the end of last year we're voted the top magic show in the UK,
Hey,
which was really exciting. But yeah, it's a really vibrant scene here, and I think, but it could always stand to grow.
that's great. I have a weird background with magic where when I was like, I don't know, I was 7 or 8, I'm sure, and my parents went to Vegas and dumped us with the grandparents, right? So we're here, they go to Vegas. They came back and they brought us a David Copperfield like magic box that has all the, cup and balls and the simplest technique magic tricks you can do. And I loved it when I was a kid, and I made my family sit and watch while I did these stupid tricks that were just like, they're all gimmicks. They're all sponges. They're all cup and balls kind of stuff. And then as I got older, I actually ended up working for a casino that was circus themed. And this wasn't in Vegas. This was in San Diego. And so I learned some sleight of hand just to kind of stay with the circus theme. And I learned it. I really enjoyed it. Some card tricks and stuff. And then they told us, hey, you can't do that anymore. People think that our dealers are able to do that too. So you can't have any card tricks in the casino. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
That's
So
amazing.
that was kind of my background. I know for you, your dad's a magician, so you kind of grew up with it in the house then, or?
Yeah, I grew up around it. What was really nice was he never forced me to be into magic. He
Hmm.
really let me find my own way into it. But and when you're growing up with that sort of thing happening around you, it's like, how could you not fall in love with it?
Yeah.
And yeah, we kind of, people always ask me, oh, did he teach you everything he knows? And no, there's stuff that he does that I have no idea how he does it. Equally, there's stuff that I do that he doesn't know, and we kind of share ideas and bounce ideas off each other. So it's kind of having um that person that you can kind of trust and share things with. And we've kind of got kind of a small kind of group of friends that are all kind of we work together. We help each other improve, which is really interesting because I would say my experience of magic very different to the experience of magic in the Prestige in that way.
So yeah, as we start to get into that, it's going to be interesting too, because you do have, I think James Dixon. He's one of the four. Is that correct?
He is, yeah.
And it says magical inventor and performer. So is he like an engineer? Like he actually devises and builds stuff for tricks? Like he's a gimmick inventor? I don't know, not gimmick, but what would you call it? What is that role like?
So I think that we all, in the kind of the four of us, we all are quite passionate about not performing things that other people are performing. You know, we want to be performing our own magic, but James kind of takes that to another level. He creates stuff that is just crazy. And he now sells his tricks to magicians around the world, and people around the world perform them. So there is that kind of, there's like an underground trade in magic tricks going on that people don't know about.
This is fascinating. I feel like all of this is going to come up as color commentary as we go through this. So in jumping over to Prestige, I think it's pretty obvious why you went, hey, I'd be a good one. We can do this one. It makes total sense. But when did you first encounter the Prestige? Did you see the movie first, see the book first? Because the book's like 1995 is when it came out.
Yeah, well, so the book came out when I was 4, so certainly wasn't it's
a TV
when it came out.
We have a special one.
But my first encounter with it was a film. I love Christopher Nolan's work, and I remember seeing the film kind of when it came out. And if I'm being honest, this book has been sitting on my shelf probably for about 10 years, and I've never got around to reading it.
Oh, this was your first read.
So this was my absolutely first read.
Oh, that's so exciting! I'm thrilled. I thought you were a Christopher Priest acolyte and knew him and knew all the stuff. Oh, so cool.
This was very much when I got the opportunity to do this podcast. I thought this is great because I've wanted to read this book for like a decade and not got around to it, and I love the film. Great. So this is the push that I need to actually pick up this book and read it. And yeah, it was a wild ride. It was good.
It was a wild ride. I'm with you. I really enjoyed this. So go read it. Podcast over. Done. No, the style of the text is one that keeps coming up again and again. Like there's a lot of books that are in this style, and it's that it's called an epistolary. So it's like a series of different people writing from different perspectives, and you kind of glean out the narrative. And what's nice about it in this one is you have this framing narrative with descendants of the Bordens and the Angiers. And so it's modern day, happening in modern day, and that's the framing device. But then they're sitting down and they're going through these journals that have been assembled by the Bordens and by Borden and Angier back when they were competing. And it makes it so that nobody's a reliable narrator. You can't really trust anything. And so the ability to pull off the book's main magic trick is manifested because of the style, which I freaking love. It's so cool.
Absolutely. I love that kind of epistolary novel. One of my favorites is The Supernatural Enhancements by Edgar Cantero. And it is told through
the Supernatural Enhancements by Edgar
Cantero.
Edgar Cantero. I don't know that one. I'll put it on my list.
It's kind of a modern ghost story that is told through snippets of text messages, emails, journal extracts, transcripts of CCTV footage. I love that kind of unusual storytelling technique. My background when I was at university, I studied English literature, so anything that is taking a traditional form like a novel and doing something unusual and unique with it, I'm here for. So I love this kind of the way that the story, as you say, unfolds through just kind of picking up little bits and hearing things from different people's perspectives, and that gets kind of teased out throughout the whole novel. It was a really nice way of not just everything being spelled out for you from the start. Yeah. And even though I have seen the film in the past, so I kind of probably knew the broad strokes of the plot, there was still a lot to kind of surprise me and a lot to kind of keep me wanting to read because it was so well written.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised too, because I have the same kind of come to it as you did, where I love the movie. It's phenomenal, and we'll again talk about that later. But I don't know if I ever would have heard of this book, and I know I hadn't, because 95 is prime reading time for me. I'm in high school and I'm devouring everything, and that Christopher Priest is kind of a science fiction adjacent guy. I'm surprised I didn't hear about him, because I like the weird stuff. I like the off the wall stuff, and so having something that was this good just kind of float around and didn't quite make it to where I knew it was there was surprising. I'm surprised I didn't bump into it, especially with he's got a whole bunch of accolades with H.G. Wells. He did a whole bunch of movie novelizations. I found
Yeah, I
this.
saw that. He did the movie novelization of Short Circuit. I saw, which is bizarre. That's so good.
It's like
I want to read
crazy.
it.
Now I want to hear about Johnny Five from the perspective of Christopher Priest.
I like what you said there about it being sci-fi adjacent as well, because it's like, is it the book almost changes genre as it goes through, I think.
Yeah.
There's elements of literary fiction, there's science fiction, it's Gothic, it's a ghost story. Like,
Yeah.
the book almost doesn't know what it wants to be, but it doesn't lose anything from that. It's
True.
part of what's being revealed. It's part of the trick, I think, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's even historical fiction in parts. Like, it was really interesting to read about, like, how you set up a tour in the 1800s. Like, how do you figure out how to do a giant tour around Europe?
Absolutely, and there's like real magic history in this book.
Yeah,
which is something that I really loved about it. That it was taking these fictional characters but placing them in a really real setting, real, like, it talks about Houdini, Devant, Chung Su, Dekolta. These are all real magicians that were touring around the world. One of the ones that's mentioned quite early on, actually, John Henry Anderson. I was delighted when I saw him in his book. He is from my neck of the woods. He's from just north of Aberdeen. And he's a fascinating guy. He was a magician, one of the first in the UK to really take magic from the streets to the stage. And he was revered around the world. He toured everywhere. Arguably bigger in the States than he was here in Scotland and the UK. But he was known as the Wizard of the North, and that nickname was given to him by Walter Scott. So there's a real literary pedigree there.
That's a pedigree for a nickname.
He's rumored to be one of the first people to pull a rabbit from a hat. Whether he was the first is debatable, but what is certain is that he was one of the first people to do the bullet catch trick. You mentioned Penn and Teller earlier. They obviously finished their show in Vegas with that. He was one of the first, and he really popularized that trick. But Anderson is his grave is in a churchyard in the center of Aberdeen, and it's kind of it's a place that magicians almost come for a pilgrimage to. When they're in the area, they hear that he is buried there, and they want to go and see his grave, because he was also a big influence on Houdini. So Anderson died the year Houdini was born. And Anderson was a great marketeer as well as a great magician. And that obviously really inspired Houdini. Houdini was all about the marketing, all about getting his name out there. And he really looked up to Anderson. So Houdini did a tour of the UK and visited Aberdeen. He was actually thrown in our harbour and escaped from chains. But he went to visit Anderson's grave, and there's a famous photo of him standing at the grave, and he noticed that it had kind of fallen into disrepair, so he paid for it to be restored. So for me, less than 50 pages in, I was like not only enjoying the start of the story, but I was feeling like the magic heritage of here where I live was being brought to life, and really, like, plays a small part, but a part in inspiring the characters of the novel, and that was really exciting for me. And kind of it was awesome.
I love that about how it does open up and how it does kind of chop into all of this magic, and it lets the main framing character, Andrew, who's And by the way, spoilers throughout this thing. So if you're looking for spoiler free, just forget about it. Turn it off. But the framing character who's descended from Borden, like his kind of interaction with magic and his kind of discussion of magic, and then how he's thinking of the secrets of his family and stuff, all layer onto each other so well. And they tell you they're doing it in the very beginning. It's so well done in exposing all that magic history and going, here's how these tricks worked. Here's how this stuff was framed. And as soon as you jump in and Borden starts writing, he's doing the same thing. He's going, I'm going to tell you how I do all the tricks. Oh, wait, I can't tell you that trick. Wait, I'm me. Yes, I can. And you're seeing them do the trick. And it's brilliant. It's so effective.
Yeah,
and I'm really curious how I would have read that if I hadn't seen the movie.
Yeah, that's exactly what I felt. That I was reading it, knowing the big twist, and wondering, would I think this is someone struggling with split personality, or how would that have come across? Going into it cold, that would be a really jarring moment. But it was really interesting that it does seem that people say that, read the book and then read it again, and suddenly all these things come to light that didn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think, too, in that there is a possibility when he's doing the I. It's like do I reveal this stuff or do I not reveal this stuff? It's written in such a way that you can read it as a self-reflective discussion if you want to. And so it does have layers that let you kind of deceive yourself, which is the big pitch in magic. It's like, I'm not going to hide everything from you. I'm going to make you think you saw what you didn't see and believe that I did what can't be done. And that kind of writing it's really effective. It's really phenomenal how well he did it.
Yeah, and it's really hard to do.
Yeah. Oh, I can't imagine it.
I think that's the thing. It's like I was really reading this, just not just enjoying the story, but enjoying the craft of the writing and enjoying the skillfulness of how every element was kind of revealed slowly throughout the book.
I wonder if he had a crazy wall with pinned cards and red string between things and just looked like a madman with his plot summary there so he could keep it all straight in his head.
Yeah.
Because he has to know which one of the Bordens is talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's such a... Yeah, to be able to keep track of two characters that are one character...
They're functionally identical. They have to be. Like, that's so crazy.
You kind of think about that and kind of put yourself just into that situation. I found myself trying to imagine what it would be like to live like that. And I just couldn't even begin to fathom that. And that adds to it as well, because it's just so kind of otherworldly, although it's rooted in real life.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have... And this is kind of more on the Angier side, but like to put it in scope for both of those, we have a lot of modern like science fiction comedies where it's somebody clones themselves so they can have more time. And Multiplicity is the one that comes to mind with Michael Keaton. And the more he copies himself, the dumber it gets because it's like a copy of a copy of a copy. But just that idea of having to juggle who's where, when, and who said what to whom and how to carry that through, that's just a monumental amount of... like downloading information back and forth about your space in the world and trying to balance it. Well, it'd probably be easier back in the 1800s than it would be now.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, it'd be easier to kind of keep track of what you were doing now, I kind of guess. Like, you could be live streaming everything to your double.
That's true. Everybody has a little earphone in and they're just listening live. That'd be really interesting. Yeah, you could do a rewrite and make it modern. That'd be strange. Let's talk a little bit about the plot. So you want to frame up just kind of the global structure of the thing so we can start cutting into the little bits?
Yeah, so, we've got the... as you said, it's obviously framed by this kind of modern-day story, which kind of caught me off guard a little bit.
Me
to start
too.
Off with, because I was like,
I was not expecting that.
It's been a while since I've seen the film, but I was reading it, going, I don't remember the film starting like this, which was good. And yeah, it's this kind of framing of a man trying to find his twin brother that everyone says doesn't exist,
Yeah.
which is what a hook, what a mystery.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, oh right, okay, I thought this was about two magicians, and then yeah, it from there he kind of investigates and it opens up this world of the of Angier and of Borden, who were these warrior magicians in the Victorian age, and I mean that is rooted in truth. That was magicians were, these guys were in the book were sneaking in, pretending to be audience
Hmm.
members, pretending to be crew members to try and find out the secrets of tricks. And that's the magic world in the Victorian
Yeah.
age. People were doing that, and people were having massive public arguments about about who owned the rights to a trick, who invented a trick, who improved on a trick. I mean, now there's very little of that in magic. I mean, I'm sure there are rivalries out there, but it's quite it's a relatively, it's friendly. It's, we don't share our secrets out with to other magicians, but within, excuse the pun, but within magic circles, it is like it is a thing. We are open and we share with each other and we kind of grow together. That's not the
Well,
case.
so I thought that was interesting too, because I've seen several more recent magicians who make their career of kind of showing how the trick is done and then showing how skilled they are, that even though you know how the trick is done, they can still fool you. Penn and Teller is the notable one, being
Yeah.
able to do a lot of stuff where it's clear cups for the cup and balls and they can still just, it's unbelievable how skilled they are. And then there was another one that had like a YouTube channel for a while, and he had a mask, but he'd show you how all the tricks were done. And then you have TikTok videos where they're showing it from the other side and kind of doing a lot of the little hand stuff, and it's just exposure. And so there's a whole cadre now of magicians in the last 20 years for Penn and Teller, but like the last 5 years for YouTube, TikTok, and just generally the internet. It's really a lot harder to keep a secret these days
It
because it's
is,
so exposed.
and I think, I mean, those kind of TikTok and YouTube channels that are exposing things. I mean, what Penn and Teller do is they create tricks and then tell people how they did them. What those YouTube channels and TikTok um, streamers are doing is exposing other people's tricks. So they're
Yeah.
buying things from magicians who've spent a lot of time and money to create something and then are revealing that and essentially cutting off that person's income stream potentially.
True.
If too many people know how something's done, it's, no one wants to buy it. There's a bit in the novel, which I actually wrote down. Magicians protect their secrets not because the secrets are large and important, but because they are so small and trivial.
Yeah.
And that's reflected. There's a magician called Jim Steinmeier who is an illusion designer, and he's worked with the likes of David Copperfield and things in creating some of the most impressive illusions ever. And he wrote in a book that magicians guard an empty safe. And that is kind of it's a similar sentiment. Is that I think a lot of magic is, it takes the fun and the joy out of it if you know how it's done.
Yeah.
And I think that, yeah, sometimes people might be disappointed with the way that it's done. And I think it's a really interesting kind of parallel with the way the book. I mean, it's talking about preserving these secrets, and there's that kind of element of, am I going to reveal who I am? Am I not? You
Yeah.
know, am I going to break the spell almost?
Well, and you've got these three nested characters and three nested stories. Well, two nested and one big one, however you want to say it. But all of them are fighting with the problem of who they really are, what their identity is, and if there's another one of them. Like
Yeah,
the easy one is around the framing, and that's Andrew's story, where
yeah,
he's trying to find his twin, and he's trying to find himself. Then you've got Borden, who is his twin and is himself. That is an integral part of his identity. And
yeah,
then you've got Angiers, who has pushed his consciousness out of his body repeated times and gone through a full dissolution of self again and again and again, and has totally broken his identity down. Like that you have these three different approaches to the same identity problem is really interesting when you're talking about twins and natural or artificial production of twins.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, you're talking about the Angier and that kind of technology, and I was obviously, after I read the novel, I was kind of doing some reading around it, and I heard someone kind of almost refer to Angier as the human equivalent of the Ship of Theseus,
Oh yeah,
in in that he's gone through this so many times. How much of him is left?
yeah.
And I think
Well,
that's what
yeah. Go ahead.
that's what the
Sorry.
novel's asking about every character, really.
Yeah,
Um, how much of that character is themselves, and how much of it is this kind of missing part.
yeah, and I think that the Ship of Theseus is a really good point to look at that one for Angiers, but I also think that having him characterized the way he is, with all of this being kind of this side passion, and he's got the estates and the money there, and so he's able to support and start off like that presentation of him as a different self, and having this be just a stage name and a stage presence. And Borden has one too, the whole French thing, and he's bad at the accent. It goes back to what you were saying about the presentation, right? Because all of them are fighting with how to present themselves so that people see what they want to see, but they can be who they want to be. Like there's constant conflict with that, and it's really well written in and dialed and explored in all of the narratives here. Because they even the relationships are all over the place, where the women that pass in and out of their lives and back and forth between the two, and between the two brothers, the twins, and then Angier having the different hymns. Like there's so much stuff where it's like, this is just, at what point have they discarded any opportunity at a real life because of this imagination and this strange space that they're chasing? Even the Freeman with Andrew trying to find his twin, he's a reporter, and they're like, yeah, go report on this. Go report on this. Like, but I don't want to. I'm trying to figure this out. And it's just everybody's being pretty selfish.
Yeah.
Let's stay on the relationships for a second. How did you take the kind of handing around the first wife, the second wife for Angier, and then the mistress who he sends over? Like, it felt so disempowering for the women in this, that the one time where Olivia kind of takes and claims her own, I was kind of rooting for and going, finally, somebody's not taking their shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. They are treated poorly, and that's putting it mildly. I think that, but the women in it play an important role. That relationship between a magician and their assistant, and that's whether that magician is male or female, whether that assistant is male or female. There needs to be absolute trust in that relationship, because the act fails if there's not. The act cannot work if there is not 100% trust, 100%, knowledge that both people are working towards the same goal. And in all of the relationships, that's just never happening. I think they maybe talk themselves into the fact that they might be working towards a shared vision for life, but realistically, no character in this is aiming towards the same thing as anyone else. No. And I think that it isn't. Yeah, I mean, and as you say, the way that the characters are kind of going back and forth, you do have to kind of remind yourself who's with who at this point, and
Yeah.
because we're reading different people's accounts, it's obviously shifting forward and back in time as well.
Yeah. Well, and that comes to like the original foundation piece that starts off their feud in Borden's account. It's the interruption of the magic trick that is the betrayal. But in
Hmm.
Angier's account, it's the miscarriage caused by the interruption that starts it all. So they're both misinformed and misunderstanding about the root of their discontent with each other. And I think once you get to the point where you've read through Borden and then you start in on Angier and you find out that she was with child and he knocked her down and she miscarried, it's like, oh, he's validly mad. This is a good reason to be mad at a dude. But
Yeah,
then you read
absolutely.
along and like 20 pages later, he's like, she's not interesting anymore. And I'm going to go off with this other person. You're like, wait, you can carry this, let's call it revenge lust. You can carry this revenge lust for Borden for your entire life, but you can't carry your romantic interest in your partner for that. Like it waxes and wanes. It's so interesting how their relationship with each other is more intimate than their relationship with their partners.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that is maybe true of real life rivals. They're more preoccupied with. You hear that all the time that people get so focused on what others are doing, they just don't see what's happening in their own lives.
Yeah, and that's a different that's a different kind of trick because I think that we're geared towards, especially after like the Facebook papers came out and they admitted that people being mad at things made them stay on the site longer. So
Yeah.
Facebook was encouraging like anger. And if you like, you're not going to hang around. If you're mad, you're going to stay and yell. And so maybe that's just us. Maybe we just like conflict more than cohesion. We'd rather butt our head against a wall than actually sit down and hug it out.
I mean, bad news sells.
Yeah.
People,
Boo.
but people are fascinated by conflict. I think if things are um too easy, if things are smooth, people find it boring.
Yeah.
Well, where's the where's the story?
Yeah.
I know so many journalists, and they, yeah, it's just, conflict is where the story is. And that's what gets people to click on a news site or well, slightly less frequently now pick up a newspaper. But
Yeah.
I think that it's the same. People are drawn to conflicts, and I think whether they like to admit it or not.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but it plays well in the story. Let's talk about the trick, the main trick, the transported man. So
Mm,
once you find out, like it's pretty easy to go, okay, he's doing it and he's using a double, but the double is perfect because it's him. That's how Borden does the
yeah,
trick. There's even discussions where Angier is trying to figure it out, and he's like, it can't be a double. It's too perfect. It's the same moles, same amount of shaving, like all this stuff,
yeah.
which really shows the lengths that Borden goes to be identical. But in your experience, like this is a trick that's been done. This is the switch when the beautiful girl pulls up the curtain and drops it, and the magician's coming out of the shackles instead of her. Like that's essentially what this trick is, right? In Borden's
Uh,
manifestation.
so what you're describing there would be a transposition.
Okay.
So that would be the replacing of one object with another with the magician and the assistant. This is more of a transportation or a teleportation of one object to another. So um, I'm sure there's something, I didn't take a note of it, but I'm sure there's something in this book about there are, there are
Oh
various
yeah.
types of magic trick. And I've got just over to my left here. I've got a bookshelf full of books on magic theory, and there are a few of them that have this sort of idea in them, that there are maybe seven or people disagree on how many. Some people say seven, some people say 10, some people say 13, but how many types of tricks there are. You know, there's the vanish, there's the appearance, there's the teleportation, the transposition, the levitation, and all these sorts of things. And the idea is that you need to have a bit of everything to make an interesting and compelling show. And so it doesn't become repetitive. It doesn't become boring. So I think, I think there's a definite difference there in, you know, the trick where, for example, as you say, the magician and assistant swap places. But yeah, I mean, the teleportation is, you know, it's a classic, and it's a classic for a reason. Quite often the magician will vanish from the stage and reappear at the back of the theater, you know, blowing a whistle, firing an air horn, something to signify that they have transported from one place to another. And you know, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of methods to accomplish that. Um, so yeah, but certainly, yeah, it's the sort of trick that would have been seen in Victorian times and would have been mind blowing, especially for that kind of those
Yeah.
audiences that had never seen anything like it before.
Yeah. They didn't have iPhones. Like the entertainment then is so different. Like I keep thinking in my head too about how you don't have a representation of what actually happened. You don't have a way to rewatch it. You don't have any way except somebody telling you about it, writing it down in the newspaper, hearing about it from the telegram, but there's no replacement for actually seeing the thing happen.
I find that magic in general is best live anyway. I mean, seeing stuff on TV, seeing stuff on the internet is good, but actually being there, actually experiencing it, there's nothing like it. And so in a way, I wish for those days when, you know, people can't rewind and slow down and pause and try and figure out a trick. You know, you just kind of see and enjoy it and suspend your disbelief for an hour as you watch a show. But yeah, I think that you're right in that, you know, stories spread, stories maybe get embellished. I think what's interesting is that we never hear an independent account of either version of the trick. You know, we hear the characters describe their own trick or each other's trick, and that's either through the eyes of pride or the eyes of jealousy. I don't, you know, we never see a newspaper report of what the trick looked like. So I find that quite interesting that you're right. We don't actually know what either of these tricks look like from a reliable, unbiased narrator.
Yeah, because it's either them describing it themselves or the other describing what they saw. And both of them being accomplished magicians, they're bringing their expertise to bear on the construct of the trick.
Mm-hmm. But the mind plays tricks, and you know, if I showed you a magic trick today and asked you in a week's time what I did, you might get the gist of it, the broad strokes, but would you remember every detail? Would you embellish some of it? Maybe, because that's what our brains do. You know that. You know, we all tell stories about things that have happened in our lives, and those stories get embellished a bit. And magicians are just as likely to do that when describing another magician's trick as the general public is.
Yeah, eyewitness testimony is notoriously unreliable. What I will say, though, is that in a lot of these, they're journaling day of. They're like coming home and going, I just saw him do this. And that adds to the viability of it. Contemporaneous accounts of crimes are better evidence than recalled a couple of days later. That's why police reports try and get it down as quick as possible. But even so, there is this... The accounts of the tricks being that astonishing do play out in the amount of money they're making off of them, the amount of fame they're getting off of it, and the size of their audiences and tours and all that stuff really plays to it. I was reading an article that was talking about like all the stuff that people would go see in the 1800s, and this was in the US, but you'd go and watch people walk in circles. They had walking became a fad, and people would go and watch people walk in circles to see who could walk the furthest. And they'd make a day of it. And I think about how we make the joke, this is I'd rather go watch grass grow. I'd rather go watch paint dry. But for a while, it feels like, at least in America, we'd be like, oh crap, a guy's coming through and he has a horse. Let's go watch the horse come through with the guy. I have not seen that particular horse before, and now I have. I am satiated. What a fascinating thing. And then you talk about it to your kids. You talk about it forever. Like, that's really strange to think about. And then you go see something that's this much spectacle, that has this much... It's magical. Like, it's like going to see the biggest special effects blockbuster of the year. And just, you can't believe what they've been able to put on screen. Or like seeing The Matrix for the first time. Right? It's just, oh my God, I can't believe they did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So with the trick and with your background, how do you think that Angier's choice to kind of go and find a science fiction kind of solution to his obsession, like how do you color that for somebody who's rich, inherited of a fortune, but is so dedicated to something that he goes to the United States, tracks down Nikola Tesla and goes, hey, you can make crazy things, make this thing for me.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I
agree.
I don't know if someone would actually have done that. But I mean, that would. I think if someone, there's this kind of the whole reason that he goes to see Tesla is because, he gets handed that note that has just the one word Tesla on it that is, trying to send him off down the wrong path. And I'm pretty sure I would look at that and go, well, that's clearly rubbish. That's clearly a red herring. But I guess maybe at the time, it maybe would have seemed believable.
Yeah, but in that, think about what we were just saying. So you're talking about a time in which the stuff that you can perform as magic tricks on stage is possibly the most phenomenal thing you can ever see. And magicians and all the tricks. And then you hear about a guy who at the World's Fair is sitting in this cage controlling lightning.
Yeah.
Like that's like colorizing film, right? Like that's one of those things where you turn around and you go, holy crap.
Yeah.
I mean, he might even think that it's almost magic. Like there's some kind of technological feat to the magic and not necessarily a science base.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's a magician here in Aberdeen, back in the day, slightly after Anderson's time, called Walford Bodie, and he used to sit in an electric chair that he had got from some prison or something that wasn't using it anymore. I don't know what it was, but he used to, pass electricity through his body, and that was part of his act, and again, he was basically saying, I can control electricity. So yeah, I guess, it is fascinating. It's this idea of him kind of going and seeking out Tesla, and Tesla just kind of going, yeah, I could do that. And it's like, it's almost so blasé the way he just kind of, he kind of rebuffs him at first, but then it's just kind of like, yeah, I'm sure I could figure that out. And it's really compelling.
I think it's really interesting because of the way that science thinks about itself too, especially scientists like Tesla, because Tesla was insane. He was so crazy. Like, he would just think of things in his head and then he'd get it all done and just draw it and be like, okay, there, I'm done. I figured it out. And he did it in his head. Like, he was a unique kind of person. But I was thinking about his kind of approach to science and magic, and I was thinking about how we deal with like science and magic now. And it reminded me, I think it was popping around as a meme on Instagram, but it pointed out that how far away from a witch throwing stuff into a cauldron and boiling and bubbling nature to cure people is penicillin, is antibiotics. Like, we're kind of at the point now where we've figured out what's happening underneath and we can make like the COVID vaccine, and we don't need the ceremony of the cauldron, but we can still do it. And then on the other side, the one that is also fun is, instead of drawing runes on rocks and calling to the spirits to make something happen, we etch them with some of the most precise machines possible on super, super tiny silicon wafers. And then we're able to do this and be in two places at once. We're in different countries on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
It's that I'm gonna get this quote slightly wrong, but I think it's Arthur C. Clarke says that
Sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah, exactly that. And I mean, it's true. I mean, magicians have always been early adopters of technology.
Yeah.
You go back to the very early days of cinema, and the people making the first films were magicians because they were interested in what this technology could bring to them and what it could add to their abilities and their performances and things, and how could they tell a story in a different way. So that for me, I mean, the idea of trying to recreate this trick through technology, I mean, it's a wild leap, but there is some truth in that. Magicians look to technology, and magicians will try and seek out new technologies that will help them improve and help them perform in different and unique ways.
So I think in the Tesla bit too, I think that's where this book is at its most science fiction-y, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the most kind of, sure, this could happen. Science somehow could do it. We're not explaining it exactly, but if science could do it, what would be the repercussions? Then you play with the idea of creating a second body that's a clone and moving the consciousness into it, right? So we're at the point of having that kind of theological discussion. I was kind of surprised that it took as much of a turn towards, I think it's fair to say, supernatural. Towards the end. Like it doesn't stay in its kind of, you can split the body from the person and all that. It's not content to stay there. It kind of carries on down the road to supernatural things and monstrosities and reanimated corpses almost. Like it got really odd. And I was reading it and I was just like, what is happening?
Yeah, absolutely. It became a Gothic horror at one point. And I just thought, where does this come from? Because it came completely out of left field. I did not see that happening. Having seen the film, I know that it's historical, but it's got science fiction elements to it, and it kind of made sense that those came in slowly as the story came along. But then, it was that. Yeah, it was like every time we switched narrator, every time we switched perspective, we were seeing the story through a different genre almost. And even that kind of, we've got that section where it's Angier and it starts off as his diary. And then you would expect, each section is kind of written in a different way. But Angier's is written in two ways within the same part of the book. It goes from the diary entries to then suddenly having chapter numbers, and there's no distinguish between that. Because
I don't think I noticed that. I need to go back and look at it because I didn't even catch that.
So basically, it kind of switched. So every other switch like that happens. It says part 1, Andrew Wesley, part 2, Alfred Borden. That switches halfway towards the end of the Angier section, because we're shifting to the perspective of this kind of spectral, half-formed version of Angier. And I love that, because I actually had to go back because I thought, I've missed like a section heading somewhere. And I flipped back a few pages and went, there isn't one. And then I realized what was happening. But that, just from a writing technique point of view, I really love that distinction of, we're still in the Angier section, but I'm gonna show you through my writing how we're changing the perspective.
I think in that too, it's really interesting because when Borden interrupts the new transported man, or what's he name it, from here to there? In a flash, that's it. So when he interrupts in a flash, you think, okay, Angier's mad that he interrupted in a flash. He did something he wasn't supposed to do, and he's going to get revenge on him like a magician would with a magic trick. And so when there's a transparent Angier haunting him, I'm thinking about, okay, what is this? One of the earliest ones for that is a Pepper's Ghost, which is where they reflect something from down below up onto it, and it looks amazingly realistic. It's actually how they got Gorillaz live on stage with Madonna, so it's still a technique they use today for holographic performances. But that's what I thought they were going to do. And then when you switch to Angier, and he's like lost half of himself and is getting sicker and sicker, and then finally you get to Angier number 3 or 4 or whatever number he is, who's out there with the other part of him and his soul. Is this pulling souls apart from bodies, or is it?
And they kind of meet themselves. It's that like coming face to face with this other half of you. I mean, that is almost an incomprehensible experience. I think it makes me wonder. What would I ask myself? how would I see myself from like looking on? I think it asks. At the end of the day, this is a story about 2 magicians, but it asks big questions.
Yeah, it does. In a really, really clever way. Okay, so to get into those deep and weird questions, or just kind of logistical questions, so then the half-formed Angier waits for the other Angier to die, and is kind of like checked out of his life, and goes, I'm gonna pretend that I'm. Because he pretends to die once before just to get out of the movie or the theater scene.
Yeah.
But now he's going to pretend to die again so he can go and see if he can get back in his body and be whole. And that's like where we leave him, is off to do his experiment and see if he can get back in his body and be whole.
Yeah.
Then in the framing narrative, we have Andrew going down to find his twin, and after hearing all the stories and all this stuff, they're kind of putting pieces together. They go, okay, there's where you have to look. You have to go where all the prestige materials have been kept.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so and going back a little bit, we bounced around a bit. So going back a little bit, Kate, right? Kate's the girl, I think.
Yes, Kate Angier. Yeah.
So Kate, who's direct inheritor of the estate, which is why they're where all these prestige materials are. They're in the family crypt. When she was a kid, they were trying to resolve the feud between the Borden and the Angier family. And she remembers meeting Nick's brother, Nick's twin, or Nick, when they were kids and playing and then keeping him entertained. And then her dad grabs him and throws him in the middle of the machine.
Yeah.
What was that for you? What was that?
Child abuse. That's what that was.
I know. What are you trying to? It was just so bizarre of a.
It was like right. If you're not going to believe me, I'm going to endanger your child. It was. Yeah. It was a bold move. Is what it was.
So here's a thought, and I want to know if you've thought this or think something different than this. Is Kate's dad just Angier? Like, was he successful in getting back in his body, since there's some Angier still around? Because and if Borden looked like Borden, that's the only time I can see him going, you took my child, I'm going to take yours. Like, it might come back to the miscarriage.
Yeah.
I don't know without asking Mr. Priest or having somebody else look at it. But when I got out the back end, and I'm like, who the hell is still there? Who's still alive? And if it's Angier, he's like 150, right? 160 years old. So who's Kate's dad? Right?
Yeah, that certainly hadn't crossed my mind, but that is cool. That's a cool theory. I guess.
The other thing because the other question where you go, who is Kate's dad, is who is Kate's dad who would bring the families together and then reassemble the machine to prove it worked and grab a child and throw him in. Either way, I want to know who Kate's dad is, because he's either mental or he's a supernatural being.
Yeah, I'm really, I just, the whole idea of the feud kind of passing down generations, I just think is really interesting. And
Yeah.
like, I it's just how how these different kind of generations of family are carrying it on. And you're right, the notion of, well, I'm going to rebuild this machine and kind of prove it is, I mean, why? I mean, obviously there's the whole, that's, where the fortune came from by using that machine so maybe that is, maybe Kate's dad is a descendant, and maybe that is kind of, the machine was recreated because they needed some money. But
that's fair.
Because there is that bit when he's in the crypt at the end, when Andrew's in the crypt and he sees this kind of figure coming towards him, and that is what I assumed to be Angier, was the kind of the spectral kind of half form of him kind of hanging around, and for me it was that he hadn't managed to kind of recombine, and that he was basically just hanging around, because he didn't really, and he was kind of stuck in this kind of limbo. I thought the ending was really kind of, it had that darkness to it for me.
Well, it's really haunting too. It leaves it in a spot where Angier's has come out from the tomb and they're looking across the snow at him.
Yeah.
Like,
and I know it's like fade to black,
right? And
it is. That's creepy. The sort of thing. If you were watching a film and it ended on that cliffhanger, or like, a season of your favorite show ended on that cliffhanger, you'd be like, "Where's the next bit?" And it is, you're kind of like, "What happens next?"
Yeah, I feel like if that was the end of the movie and it cuts to that, and then it has like the first title card of who played who, everybody in the theater would go, kind of shake out a minute, because it's just like, it's such an unsettling and unresolved ending.
But I loved it for that.
Yeah, it was great for this though. It was really it's one of those ones you can get away with books. It's a lot easier to do that because it's just
absolutely.
So with that, it seems like we're coming to the end. Is there anything that we've missed? Are there any notes that you took down that you want to talk about? Structure, character. There's some neat things with
the more kind of just on the history side of things, and I really found it interesting about the way like Spiritism played into it. Which it wasn't a big thing in the Victorian time, and it was certainly something that, and still to this day, when you consider mediums and psychics and things, splits. It doesn't just split the magic community; it splits the general public as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think even when you're talking about magic and Houdini's role in it, like his big thing with his wife was, whichever one of us goes first, here are the codes to use at a seance to prove there is an afterlife.
And they still hold a seance so he died on Halloween, and in the Magic Castle in Hollywood, they hold a seance every Halloween to try and contact Houdini. I mean, Houdini and Arthur Conan Doyle were famously great friends until Doyle became interested in spiritualism through the loss of kind of family members, and found himself falling down that rabbit hole, and famously fell out with Houdini. I mean, Doyle's got a fantastic series, obviously well known for Sherlock Holmes, but it's a fantastic series of featuring a character called Professor Challenger. So starts with
I'm familiar with it.
So starts with the Lost World, about Challenger
Oh,
going off.
so there's stuff inside the world. That one, the Lost
And
World.
no, so it's kind of on a plateau,
Okay.
in the rainforest or something. It's been a while since I read it, but there are then four subsequent kind of short stories and novellas that take that character, Professor Challenger. And Challenger starts off as this very Sherlock Holmes style logic, science, reason. Admittedly, you're reading it and thinking some of these so-called scientific views are very outdated, and yes, not stuff that you would agree with now, but you see in the context he's very scientific, and as Doyle himself became embroiled in the world of spiritualism, so too did this character, Professor Challenger. And as you read the five stories, you see him, you see Doyle exploring spiritualism through the character of Challenger. And by the end of it, Challenger is a believer in all of this, whereas in the first book, he would have said, complete rubbish. Now, I mean, personally, I don't believe in any of that sort of stuff. So I just found it really fascinating, that kind of exploration of the kind of the fraudulence within that kind of world of seances. And again, it just rang true to me, like the way it was described, the way that things were achieved for those kinds of
Yeah.
events, the
Yeah.
way that people were calling them out. It was just all so real.
Yeah. And it makes perfect sense for magicians to be the ones involved in it, because they're used to doing the misdirection and kind of prestidigitation kind of stuff. I really enjoyed that part too. And I did kind of go through it going, they know they're faking it. They're not in some way believing that they're a conduit to unreality. And I think the scary thing with some of them today is that they're not conmen and grifters. There are people that really believe that they're doing something.
There are people,
and I don't know which one's scarier.
Yeah, I'm not revealing anything from the magic world to say that a lot of kind of psychic stuff is done through something called cold reading, which is essentially reading people's body language, reading kind of subtle cues that people give to figure out some information. And
Yeah, who
people
was
do
that
it.
guy that had a TV show and he read people in the audience, and it was awful. It was so exploitative and so kind of abusive of the people that were on the show. I did not enjoy.
I think
that's
some people,
that is there.
they do it and they don't realize they're doing it. So those people do believe that there is something. Some people who are fraudulent talk themselves into, oh well, but I'm helping people. I'm giving them comfort, I'm giving them solace, and that's kind of seems to be the route that it goes down in the book, or certainly, that's how he sees it himself, is that I'm helping people, therefore it's not a misuse of my talent.
Yeah.
But for me, it is, as you said, it's kind of preying on the vulnerable. It's exploitative, but in a literary sense, fascinating. In the real world, a bit scary.
But I in coming back into that and thinking about it, like there is an argument to be made that at least in the way that Christopher Priest writes this text, he does have in this universe a separation of body and mind, because the machine clones the body and then moves the mind, destroying the prior vessel.
Absolutely, yes. So yeah, within the context of the book, it does, I suppose it does provide that kind of mirror to the technology and the supernatural, kind of both achieving the same thing, maybe.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I think that's going to be a wrap for the Prestige. We're going to go watch the movie, and then we're going to talk about that. And I'm sure I'm already thinking about things to say about differences, and I'm sure Ian's doing the same thing. You want to tell him one more time where to find you on the internet?
So if you search me on Instagram, I'm Ian Listens, because I listen to a lot of music. I like to post about music, so it's EOIN Listens. Check me out on Facebook. I'm not on TikTok because I'm not. But yeah, I'm around. If you search my name, you'll find me. You find me on Goodreads and check out the
Oh, there
stuff
we go.
that I've
Perfect.
published as well. Yeah.
We'll put
It's an
links.
unusual name, so people find me pretty
Yeah.
easily.
Eoin. I had to check to
Yeah.
make sure I was saying it right before we got going. Even though I listened to him in other podcasts and I heard them say his name, I didn't trust myself until I got verification. We'll put a link to his link tree in the show notes or in the YouTube description, depending on where you're getting this. And for me, you can find me here because you found me. You can also go to justinduke.com and find all the other stuff. Either way, happy to have you. Ian, thanks for coming in. Thank you all for listening. You guys have a great read. Have a great watch. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.